The smell of charcoal and lighter fluid hung in the air like a promise of normalcy I no longer believed in. I stood at our backyard grill, spatula in hand, watching my wife Nora glide between our guests with the practiced grace of someone who'd perfected the art of being watched. "Evan, honey, don't overcook the burgers," she called out, her voice carrying that particular tone she used when she wanted everyone to know she was managing me. "You know how Jennifer likes hers." I flipped a patty and watched the grease sizzle. "Sure thing, sweetheart." Our neighbor Tessa lounged in one of our patio chairs, her dark hair catching the afternoon sun. At 28, she had that fearless quality that comes from not yet learning when to keep your mouth shut. She was nursing her second beer and eyeing the whole scene with obvious amusement. "You two are like something out of a magazine," Tessa said, raising her bottle toward us. "The perfect suburban couple?" Nora's laugh tinkled like wind chimes. "Oh, we're far from perfect. Maybe I should just give him away to someone who'd appreciate him more." The words hung there for a moment. I kept my eyes on the grill, but I could feel the shift in the air. "I'll take him," Tessa said without missing a beat. The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut. When I glanced up, Nora's smile had frozen on her face like ice forming on a windshield. Her grip on her wine glass had gone white-knuckled. "How funny," Nora managed, but her voice had lost its musical quality. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Then Nora's phone, sitting on the patio table, lit up with a text notification. I caught the name on the screen, Trent. Trent Ardell, her coworker at the marketing agency, the guy with the expensive suits and the kind of confidence that came from never having to worry about mortgage payments. "Excuse me," Nora said, snatching up her phone. "Work emergency." She disappeared into the house, and I found myself alone with Tessa and our other guests. But my mind was elsewhere, focused on that name. Trent had been texting my wife a lot lately. Always work emergencies. Always urgent. "Earth to Evan," Tessa said. "Burgers are smoking." I rescued the meat from the flames, but the damage was done, just like everything else in my life, apparently. Later that night, after our guests had gone home and Nora had retreated to her home office for another urgent project, I sat in our bedroom staring at her phone charger. She'd left her device plugged in on her nightstand, something she never did. The house was quiet except for the sound of her typing downstairs. I'd been a freelance photographer for 15 years. I knew about technology, about digital footprints, about the things people thought they could hide. It took me less than 10 minutes to clone her phone to my laptop. What I found there made my stomach turn to stone. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. The text thread between Nora and Trent went back 6 months. 6 months of planning, scheming, and laughing at my expense. Trent: "Did you see his face when I mentioned the promotion? Priceless." Nora: "He's so clueless. Still thinks I married him for love." Trent: "When are you going to tell him about us?" Nora: "After his little art show next month. I want to watch him fail first. Then I'll crush what's left." I scrolled through message after message, each one a small blade between my ribs. They'd been planning to humiliate me at my upcoming photography exhibition. Nora had even contacted potential buyers, telling them my work was amateur and overpriced. But the worst part wasn't the affair. It was the contempt, the casual cruelty. The way they talked about me like I was some kind of pet they'd grown tired of. My hands shook as I screenshotted everything. 15 years of marriage, and this was what it had come to. But if Nora thought she could destroy me without consequences, she was about to learn otherwise. I'd always been underestimated. The quiet guy with the camera, the one who noticed things others missed. But I'd grown up in a neighborhood where you learned to fight back, or you didn't survive. Time to remind everyone of that. The next morning, I started with something simple. Nora used the same password for everything. our wedding anniversary, because she thought it was romantic. I logged into her work email and found the contract she'd been negotiating with Morrison Industries, a big account worth $60,000. With a few keystrokes, I rerouted the contract to my own business email. Then I called Morrison's CEO directly. "Mr. Morrison, this is Evan Mercer. I believe there's been some confusion about your marketing contract." By the time Nora got to work that morning, Morrison Industries had already signed with me instead of her agency. I'd undercut their price by 20% and promised a faster turnaround. My phone rang at 10:47 a.m. "What did you do?" Nora's voice was ice-cold fury. "Good morning to you too, honey. How's work going?" "Don't play games with me, Evan. Morrison was my account." Was being the key phrase there. Funny how these things happen when you're not paying attention. The line went quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was different, calculating. "I don't know what you think you're doing, but—" "I'm learning to play your game," I said. "Hope you're ready for it." I hung up and immediately called my old friend Mara, who worked in HR at Nora's agency. "Mara, it's Evan. I need a favor." That evening, I waited in the shadows of the agency's parking garage. Trent always stayed late on Wednesdays. I'd learned his schedule from Nora's calendar, which she'd foolishly synced to her phone. At 8:15, he emerged from the elevator, his expensive suit wrinkled from a long day. He was talking on his phone, probably to another one of his conquests. "Yeah, she's completely under control," he was saying. "Her husband's a nobody. Some photographer who thinks he's artistic." I stepped out from behind a concrete pillar. "Evening, Trent." He nearly dropped his phone. "Jesus. Evan, what are you doing here?" "Waiting for you." I kept my voice casual, friendly even. "Thought we should have a chat." Trent glanced around the empty garage. His Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed. "About what?" "About boundaries. About respect. About what happens when someone crosses lines they shouldn't cross." "I don't know what you're talking about." I pulled out my phone and showed him one of the screenshots. His face went pale as he read his own words. "Nice boxers, by the way," I said. "The ones with the little sailboats. You really should be more careful about what you flash when you're adjusting yourself in your car." His mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. "Here's how this is going to work," I continued. "You're going to stop texting my wife. You're going to stop planning my destruction. And you're going to start looking for a new job, because this one isn't going to work out for you much longer. You can't threaten me." "I'm not threatening you, Trent. I'm educating you. There's a difference." I walked closer, and he backed up against his BMW. "You see, I've spent my whole career learning how to see things others miss, how to capture the perfect moment, and I've captured some very interesting moments involving you." I showed him another photo on my phone, him coming out of a hotel with a woman who definitely wasn't Nora. "Your wife might find this interesting, don't you think? What's her name again? Rebecca?" "You're insane." "No, Trent. I'm thorough and patient and very, very motivated." I stepped back and smiled. "Have a good evening. Drive safely." As I walked away, I heard him fumbling with his keys, his hands shaking so badly he could barely get them in the lock. Phase 2 was complete. 3 days later, Mara called me with a warning. "Evan, Nora's up to something. She's been making calls about your exhibition, something about a delivery problem." I wasn't surprised. Nora had always been predictable in her vindictiveness. If she couldn't win fairly, she'd cheat. The question was how far she'd go. I got my answer the morning of my art show. The delivery truck carrying my framed photographs never showed up. When I called the company, they claimed there had been a miscommunication about the address. But I'd been expecting this. The night before, I'd quietly moved all my real pieces to a backup location. What was supposed to be delivered was just empty frames and decoy images. When Nora arrived at the gallery that evening, she was practically glowing with anticipation. She'd brought Tessa and several of our neighbors, probably expecting to witness my public humiliation. "I'm so sorry about your delivery problems, darling," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "These things happen to the best of us." "Do they?" I asked. "How interesting that you'd know about that." Her smile faltered for just a moment. That's when I unveiled my real exhibition. The photographs I'd actually prepared weren't landscapes or portraits. They were surveillance shots, candid moments, people being themselves when they thought no one was watching, including several shots of Nora and Trent together. Nothing explicit, but intimate enough to make their relationship obvious to anyone with eyes. "This series is called Hidden Truths," I announced to the gathered crowd. "It's about the things people do when they think they're invisible." The room went quiet. I watched Nora's face cycle through confusion, recognition, and pure rage in the span of about 5 seconds. "You can't do this," she hissed. "Actually, I can. It's called art." Tessa started laughing, not polite social laughter, but genuine amusement. "Oh my God, Nora, is that you and—" "Shut up," Nora snapped. But it was too late. The whispers had already started. Phones were coming out. In a town this size, gossip traveled faster than wildfire. By the time the evening ended, I'd sold 3 pieces. More importantly, Nora's carefully constructed image had begun to crack. She cornered me as the last guests were leaving. "This isn't over," she said. "No," I agreed. "It's not." The next morning, Nora's car was missing from our driveway. She found it 3 blocks away at Murphy's Tavern, keys sitting on the bar with a note. "Thanks for letting me borrow it. A friend." Her work email had been locked out due to suspicious activity. Her gym membership had been canceled for non-payment, despite the automatic charges from our joint account. Small things, annoying things, the kind of problems that pile up and make you feel like the world is shifting under your feet. But I was just getting started. Through Mara, I learned that Trent had been skimming expense reports for months. Nothing major. A dinner here, a hotel upgrade there, but enough to get him fired if the right person noticed. I made sure the right person noticed. "Evan?" Mara called me that afternoon. "Trent's been suspended pending investigation. Thought you'd want to know." "Suspended? That's unfortunate." Also, Nora's been asking about transferring to the Portland office. Seems like she's planning an exit strategy. Portland. 300 miles away. She was going to run, probably with Trent once his suspension was lifted. That evening, I drove to Trent's apartment complex. His BMW sat in the parking lot like a beacon of arrogance. I walked around it slowly, admiring the paint job, the custom rims, the leather interior. Then I let the air out of all 4 tires. While I waited for him to discover my handiwork, I prepared a special surprise for his air conditioning system. Canned sardines have a very distinctive smell, especially when they're mashed into ventilation intake. When Trent finally came outside and saw his car, the sound he made was almost musical, a kind of strangled yelp that echoed off the apartment buildings. I stepped out from behind a nearby car. "Problem, Trent?" He spun around, his face flushed with anger and embarrassment. You did this." "Did what? I was just taking a walk. Nice evening for it." "You're crazy. I'm calling the authorities." "And telling them what? That someone let air out of your tires? That your car smells like fish? Good luck with that." I walked closer, keeping my voice conversational. "You know what I think happened here? I think karma caught up with you. Funny how that works." His hands were shaking again. "Stay away from me." "I'm not the one you need to worry about, Trent. See, when you mess with someone's life, sometimes life messes back. And sometimes it has help from people who don't like cheaters and liars." I leaned in close enough that he could smell my aftershave. "Touch my wife again, and the tire thing will seem like a love letter. We clear?" He nodded frantically. "Good talk," I said, and walked away whistling. The charity gala at City Hall was Nora's idea. She'd volunteered to help organize it, probably thinking it would restore her damaged reputation. What she didn't know was that I'd volunteered too, specifically to handle the audiovisual equipment. The theme was celebrating our community, and I'd prepared a very special slideshow. The evening started normally enough. Nora worked the room in a designer dress, playing the role of the perfect community leader. Trent had shown up despite everything, probably at her insistence. I waited until the lights dimmed for the presentation. The first few slides were exactly what people expected. Local businesses, community leaders, charity work. Then, gradually, the images began to change. Text messages appeared on the screen. Photos of secret meetings. Audio clips played through the sound system. He's so clueless, still thinks I married him for love. After his little art show next month, I want to watch him fail first. The room went silent, except for the sound of phones being pulled out to record. Gasps echoed from the audience as they recognized the voices. Nora tried to reach the projection booth, but Tessa, who'd positioned herself strategically, stuck out her foot. Nora went down hard, red wine splashing across her white dress. "Oops," Tessa said loudly. "Clumsy me." The crowd erupted in whispers and barely contained laughter. Trent tried to slip out the back, but found his path blocked by Gabe, my drinking buddy from Murphy's Tavern, who'd volunteered to help with security. "Leaving so soon?" Gabe asked. "Show's just getting good." On screen, the final audio clip began to play. It was from just 2 days ago. Nora and Trent rehearsing a story about how I'd been emotionally abusive and unstable. Their plan to paint me as the villain in their divorce narrative. "We need to make sure everyone believes you were afraid of him," Trent's voice said clearly through the speakers. "Right. I'll say he threatened me, maybe threw something." "Perfect. No one will question the innocent wife." The recording ended, and the room exploded into chaos. Cameras flashed. Voices rose in anger and disbelief. I stepped up to the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the real Nora and Trent, the people who thought they could destroy someone's life for entertainment." Nora struggled to her feet, mascara running down her cheeks. "You monster! You've ruined everything." "No," I said calmly. "You did that yourself. I just made sure everyone could see it." She lunged at me then, all pretense of dignity abandoned. But I'd been expecting it. I stepped aside, and she crashed into the podium instead. The crowd watched in stunned silence as she picked herself up, her perfect image finally and completely shattered. For once, I said to no one in particular, the underdog didn't just bite back, he went for the jugular. Nora looked at me with pure hatred, but there was something else there too. Fear. The realization that she'd lost everything, her job, her reputation, her carefully constructed life. Trent was already gone, having slipped away during the chaos. By morning, he'd be out of town permanently. I walked out of that gala with my head high, leaving behind the wreckage of their schemes. The story would spread through our small city like wildfire. By tomorrow, everyone would know the truth. Justice, I'd learned, didn't always come from courts or lawyers. Sometimes it came from patience, planning, and the simple act of letting people see who someone really was. The game was over, and for the first time in months, I'd won.